Hello, my name is Voya and welcome to my deep guide. And precariously positioned, these two very valuable 13-inch ePaper computer monitors. Both are coming from Dasung, and we got Dasung 13K monochromatic for Mac version and the Dasung 13K color version going head to head in this video to see how they compare and which one might be the best fit for you. Alright, so here we have both of them lined up. We have the color version, naturally, on the left-hand side, and the black and white version. This is the for Mac black and white version on the right-hand side. Both of them are connected to my laptop, and I am duplicating the display on both of them so that you can you can see exactly the same thing on both of them. Now, before I start comparing the modes and talking about this stuff, I've noticed a couple of things that I think is worth mentioning while attempting to connect both of these to the computer at the same time. Please keep in mind that this is the for Mac variation that I talked about when I reviewed, and the for Mac variation needs that Dasung Paperlike client software for it to work. Without it, it will not work at all, which is not true for the non-for Mac versions, and you have the for Mac versions of both color and the black and white ones. You can see that maybe if the camera angle hasn't sagged yet, but the color version is connected to the PC via the single USB-C cable, and it goes right in there, and that's enough, and it works. And normally when I tested it, it would work properly and you would have also the touch support. Here, I no longer have that because the Paperlike client is kind of interfering in a strange way. And here comes the main point. The Paperlike Dasung client supports only one display, and it can only recognize one display. So if you're going to be connecting to, highly unlikely scenario, I know, but still it's worth testing out. If you're going to be doing something like that, the order of connecting is important. If you have a for Mac version, you need to connect it to first and start up the Paperlike client so that it recognizes the monitor that you want to control via the Paperlike client, and then you connect the other one. Why that interrupts with the touch functionality on this one, I don't really know, because the touch functionality on the 13K color version worked without the Paperlike client as well normally. So I'm not entirely sure why that's the case, but it is. The second thing that you need to be aware of is that, again, the for Mac version, I'm connecting it via the HDMI to my PC. But if you connect it via HDMI and start up the Paperlike client, it's not going to be enough. It actually requires the USB connection as well. So USB-C to your computer, it can be A or C, it doesn't really matter. That's for digital data communication for the Paperlike client to actually connect and communicate with this monitor. So if you want the Paperlike client to work, you need to hook up either one of these displays with a USB-C connection, and then it will recognize it. So that's the stuff that you need to kind of keep in mind to, just understand where you're at and what it looks like when you're attempting to use a multi-Dasung 13K monitor environment. That being said, my setup, as I already said, it's duplicated. We're in portrait view so that we can more easily fit everything here. I have the window to the right here, still snowing, still middle of the winter, not fun. We have the high contrast theme on my computer, and that's pretty much it. What I'm going to be doing in this video is I'm going to show you how they look like in the same lighting conditions, and I'm going to be switching between modes and contrasts in the same type of content so that you can see what are the differences between these two. So let's start with the basics, and let's turn off the front light on both of them. Same lighting conditions, and you can clearly see that the inherent darkness of the Kaleido 3 panel is a very, very serious impact on the user readability and usability of this panel if you don't want a front light. And to me, it's not just the darkness. Obviously, the darkness is very, very palpable here. There's also that natural fuzziness that comes because of the color filter array, or the CFA layer that's on top of a black and white screen. That's how Kaleido works, but that introduces fuzziness. That fuzziness you can't really notice unless you put them side to side to compare. But once you do, there's absolutely zero comparison in crispness, image quality, poppiness, and all readability between the black and white version and the color Kaleido version. So yes, you do get the color, but the price is not just the darkness. Even when you turn the front light on, and let's put it to the mixed one, and they are on the same intensity levels here on both of them, you can see that with the same intensity level, this one is still darker than the black and white one. And even if we were to match the brightness here, so you need to go quite a lot, almost basically to the maximum, to try and match the fourth or the halfway intensity levels on the black and white version to kind of have the same type of lighting. Even then, the color version simply cannot match the crispness level between the black and white and the color Kaleido screen, which makes perfect sense because Kaleido has all of those limitations that I talked about. And please keep in mind, I'm having matched contrast levels. This is web view. Contrast level is 2 or 3 on both of them. And the only thing that I've changed now is we have dramatically increased front light on the color version so that it can match the intensity that's halfway intensity on the black and white version. I find the light itself, actually the hue of the light, more pleasant and more kind of paper-like-ish on the color version, and that is not necessarily a problem because currently the black and white version is connected to the app. So what I can do is I can start adjusting the brightness or the color tint to kind of match it a little bit more. As I move the slider around here, I can actually find somewhat of a matching type of a value. So let's try and match this. And it's okay, but what I can notice, and I don't know if the camera is going to be able to catch this, but hopefully it will. No matter what I do with the front light tinting, I'm getting a somewhat greenish tint in the warm light itself. And we can actually see that when I switch over to, for example, pure warm light, and here pure warm light. And let's put the maximum intensity on both so that we have one-to-one comparison, right? So this is maximum warm light, maximum intensity on both of them. And you can clearly see that there's a very, very big difference in the light quality and the color quality of the front light between these two panels. And I prefer the one on the 13K a lot more than the one on the black and white version, because this one is not only a very, very green tint rich, but it also has color bleeds here. It's not as consistent as this one is. One thing that you could say is that, well, it's not the same intensity, so maybe that's why it affects it. Well, even when I lower the intensity, we still don't have the same hue, and we still see that color bleed. So the front light in the stack of the screen that's used, these are different panels, and these are different front lights being used in both of these. Let's check out the fully cold light on both of them, and let's do the same thing. Maximum intensity here, and maximum intensity here. This is brighter, but still it's kind of glowing, and it has this coldness, not just because of the cold light. This one also has, it's a cold light, but it's somewhat more pleasant. For whatever reason, it feels more natural. Maybe it's the intensity, so let's lower the intensity to try and match it. But it's not really. I think it's the CFA layer. I think it's basically the CFA layer is softening up that light and creating a more pleasant paper-like type of light for the front light here between the two. This one is good, and it's very sharp, really crisp, really clean. This one resembles more like a printed paper type of a page, and which becomes especially true when we switch to a mixed type of light. All right, so let's see how do viewing modes compare, how does the ghosting compare, and the readability. I've adjusted the front light to mixed and different values on both of these to kind of match sort of to what my eyes at least looks like in these lighting conditions, a similar or as similar as I can get type of a front light and lighting environment, something that I personally would be comfortable to use in this type of a setting. Both are in web view mode and both are adjusted at the same exact contrast levels, which I think is 2 or 3. I'm not sure. I think it's 2. So as we are mirroring this, let's start with clear on both of them so that we can see how does the ghosting performance affect the quality of the image. And I can see that, yeah, first of all, the speed seems to be exactly the same between these two. There's really not much between them. If we're checking out the ghosting performance, we have some ghosting on both of them, but it's actually quite a bit cleaner on the black and white version, which is to be expected because Kaleido panels, again, yeah, they have quite a few kind of shortfalls, and one of them is also the ghosting performance. And while 13K color performs brilliantly for a Kaleido panel, it's still just a Kaleido panel. And I can't really escape the point that even though, yes, because of the colors and because of the CFA layer, and I get that kind of more papery type of quality of the image, that is definitely alluring and nice to see. As far as pure readability goes, I can clearly feel my eyes straining a little bit more to make out the dense text that I have here from this distance, and I'm equal distance between all of these, than when I'm looking at this, because the characters are crisper, sharper, and there's more contrast in all of this that I'm reading. So therefore, I can feel my eyes and my face relaxing more when I'm reading the same content on the same page, same zoom level, everything exactly the same on the black and white version of the 13K. As far as the images rendering, I think that they're very, very similar between them. Maybe a little bit darker because you can see like a bit more differentiation here in the color version. And definitely, yeah, it seems like it's a little bit darker. So on the black and white version, I would absolutely use one step down the contrast level when compared to the 13K, and then I'm getting a very, very one-to-one type of visibility ratio between them. Going even brighter, you could, and yeah, you actually get even a little bit more, but when I was comparing some of the images, it can get a little bit washed out, but not that much actually. It's quite pleasant. So yeah, I wouldn't use the same contrast setting between both of them. I would adjust them so that I'm getting the best quality and the best image quality that I like, that suits my needs, from each of the panels separately. And you can clearly see here, so yeah, if we step down to the lowest contrast setting, that looks better than if we were to go to the lowest contrast setting. Here it's kind of washed out. So here I would use 3, and here I think I would use 2, and that would give me an overall very, very pleasant and consistent type of a reading situation. So let's now switch both of them to the text mode and quickly see how they perform. All right, so let's go text mode, clear, clear, and we're going to lower the contrast to 1. Okay, so this is contrast to 1 on both of them. and I'm going to adjust it until it's fine on either of the screens. So, and that will be level 2 for now on both of them. So let's clear out the images and see what we have. This is fairly dark, actually. It's very difficult to get clear image quality on the black and white version in the text mode, so for images at least. But that makes the text really pop. I mean, there's quite a bit of a difference. I could comfortably sit way further back, below or further than 1 meter. Right now I'm further than 1 meter, and I can comfortably read everything that I can see on this one, while on here I can read, but I'm slower. It's much slower to read because I need to take a little bit more time, because the definition of the characters is simply not as good as it is here. And again, I have the same type of impression that it's much easier and readability is much better on the black and white version. So as far as ghosting goes, I think both are performing quite well, but the images rendering on the black and white, it's even between 1 and 2 contrast setting. Something in between should be, because 2 is too dark, 1 is too bright, and I simply can't find a good balance in the text mode for rendering of the images. Well, that's really not the case in the on the color version, where I have quite a bit to kind of tweak around. So 1, 2, and 3 you can adjust to your liking, whereas here it's kind of similar, but it's way more punchy and way more aggressive as far as contrast calibration goes. Readability is great on both of them. The color version maintains that paper-like quality, again, I guess due to the front light and the CFA layer. However, if I were to, for example, turn off the front light on both of them, well, we no longer have a competition then, because now the black and white version is a dominant winner, and it just is completely usable and really nice. Here I would need to squint, and I would really need to kind of find a good angle, and it wouldn't be as an effortless type of situation as it is with the 13K black and white. All right, let's swap over to the image mode. Minimum contrast, and clear, and let's see what we have. Well, this is a much nicer situation for the black and white here, although we are seeing some artifacts here, and now we have that inherent problem with the image drawing mode, or the image mode, display mode on both of them, which is the artifacting around the dynamic changes, or the areas of the dynamic change of the screen. That's how it's actually updating, because it's not updating anything here, it's only updating the stuff that's changing. And we get this kind of stuff. Although I have to say that even at minimum contrast levels, that artifacting is far more prominent on the 13K black and white version than it is on the color version. The color version, it's there, but it is nowhere near as disturbing and as strong as it is on the black and white. So let's try and find a setting that I would be comfortable with for the image quality in both of them. Something like this for both of them. Let's clear. Actually, let's move the cursor out of the way. And now let's start just sliding the content, there we go, to see how the performance is. So performance, again, still really quick and really nice. The sliding clarity while sliding, both of them have issues with updating images and graphics when moving. However, that issue with this kind of disturbing changes here, that remains to be dominant on the black and white screen. Even if I go to minimum contrast, it's still very present, and you can see sometimes it even blinks totally. You can see how, yeah, different contrasting methods, and it's just not that great. And that unfortunately is present even when you're just swiping through. And I find this mode, this to me is too distracting and too messy. On the color version, I could be okay with it. On the black and white version, the image mode, that's far too much. I would never use this. And although the clean text is really nice, and it's very nice to have that differentiation, definitely best image quality rendering in this mode, but the rest of it, it's, yeah, the price is simply kind of too high, and the web mode works better for me at least. Even the text mode actually works better on the 13K color. On the black and white version for images, it's too dark. All right, finally, let's go all the way up. But needless to say, like, the performance overall is impressive on both of them. I'm just now trying to compare between the two. What are the differences that we can observe, and what can you expect? And just to kind of show you, if you're thinking between the two, what you can expect between the two. So now let's switch to the final one, which is the active mode, which I don't even see what's the point of it, because I can show a video maybe, but there's no real point to this active mode, because it degrades the quality way too much, and it doesn't really improve anything that much. I don't see what the trade-off actually is, because the web mode is just that good. You get everything so much better on the web mode. So that image degrading, you can actually see it on both of them, except that the starting point of image quality is absolutely excellent because there's no CFA layer on the black and white version, so it's not that noticeable. You can see it, but it's just like a softer quality. While on the color version, when you're in active mode, the color or the text becomes even more kind of washed out, and that affects the overall readability quite a bit. So since we're in active mode, let's move on to a video. Let's put it in full screen and let's clean both of them. Yeah, for me, active mode is simply, I don't know, it's okay, but I don't understand fully what it would be for. As far as whether or not you would go for a color version to view your videos or not, that's a whole different matter, because somehow the black and white version just looks kind of nicer to me, because when I see some faux colors, all I'm reminded of is like, oh, there's no proper colors here, and that's what it is. In all honesty, when I'm looking at a black and white display, then my expectations are different, and I think it's all about that. Where basically, when I'm looking at something like this, then it's yeah, it just makes a little bit more sense. So I'm just gonna drive over the video to something more like this. There we go. Okay, so now let's switch over to web mode on both of them. Clearly, to me, the web mode is the clear winner. It just has better picture quality. It does have some flickering that I can see on the color version. That flickering is not that noticeable here. And I can just adjust the contrast to suit me better. Personally, I prefer the black and white viewing of videos than on this type of screen, simply because I don't like the palette of the Kaleido screen. I think that it's not pleasant. Well, this actually is quite pleasant. So if we switch off to text mode, yeah, we still have the same type of issues. Much punchier contrast, but yeah, that. If we go to image mode, it's ugly. And when we go to active mode, we see, I don't know if the camera can see, but you can see like dots, like a dot matrix type of printer, which is very, very odd. That being said, like in an image like this, it looks beautiful on both of them. It really does. However, switching to web mode, I don't see anything wrong with this. On the contrary, on both of them, for me, web mode kind of wins hands down in most of the situations. And let's just have the end video here. Yeah, blues, greens rendered kind of nicely. It just works in a quite a good way. And I'm just gonna check out the color wheel here between the two. So let's clear the contrast, and I am in web mode, contrast level 1 for both of them. Now the color wheel doesn't make too much sense, but you can actually just see like which colors are going to be completely, when do we lose differentiation between the saturation and the hues, and yeah, what you gain with the color display and how it would look like on the monochromatic one. So level 2 contrast, level 3 contrast, 4, 5, 6, and already now you can see like at this level it's way too many similarities. We have the whole, almost the entirety of the fully saturated range here completely the same, and we have a similar kind of thing happening here, but already the green, yellow, green, and red, violet, and red, we're starting to have a differentiation that's simply not present on the black and white version. Even if it was like a grayscale, that would be nice. And here we said it's very, very different type of contrast calibration between the two, because right now in this level, like most of the colors are deemed, oh, that's just black, while here only a few of them are getting into that range. So where it's going now, almost the full color circle is black. And we're getting, I think we're now close, if not the maximum level, we're very close to it. Yeah, that was the maximum level on both of them. So that's quite a big difference as far as saturation goes. Although, to be fair, you can see that we have that same type of no differentiations between the blue, cyan, green, tiny bit yellow green here. Yellow is exactly the same. We got yellow, orange, orange, a little bit brighter orange here, red, orange, orange, red, orange, orange, red, orange, orange, red. So fairly similar type of situation and characterization, but obviously for colors rendering and image rendering, I think that the color version is better suited for that type of content and use case. And for completeness sake, I'm now in a dark room so that you can kind of see. So this is what it looks like fully dark in this room. I get some ambient light coming in here and a minimum light from the screen over here. And I can't see anything on this screen, on the Kaleido, while here I can see the titles and the paragraphs. I can't read anything in this fully dark room, but I can see some type of shapes and images. When I turn on the front light, so both are now in cold. So I'm gonna go to minimum value on both of them, just so you can see what the differences are. So this is a cold front light, minimum intensity. We're gonna go now to maximum intensity. Cold light, maximum intensity on both of these. You can see how the image is rendered as well. I'm just going to go here and find something that's, so that we can compare the image as well. Let's clear it after the scrolling. Okay, so now we're going to go to fully warm front light, and you can very, very clearly see the difference in the color and a lot of green tint in the warm front light of the black and white version, and this one is just far, far more pleasant. This is maximum intensity. We go to minimum intensity here on both of them, and this is what they look like. With minimum intensity, that green tint is even more pronounced on the black and white version. And then we switch to the mixed front light. This is minimum intensity, and we have quite a pleasant type of an overlook, although the front light clearly is more pleasant, for me at least, dominantly so on the color version of the 13K. And we go to the maximum intensity. Sorry, that should be the other way around. There we go, maximum intensity on both of them with the mixed color of the front light. Well, okay, so that's what they are and that's how they compare. I'm honestly really torn, my own personal impression between these two, because on the one hand, I absolutely love the brightness and not needing to rely on front light 100% of the time with the 13K black and white version. So that to me is a really nice benefit, because it feels so much nicer to just kind of read off a surface that's not lit in any way, shape or form. And that's something that you can do with the monochromatic version, not with the color version. I also really enjoy the added crispness, contrast and clarity and readability of the monochromatic monitor, because it is substantially better than what you have on the color version, naturally because it doesn't have that CFA layer interfering with the crispness of the 300 ppi panel that you actually have on both of them. So this one definitely has better image quality, better crispness, better contrast, better visibility, better readability. And it has an added bonus that it does have the magnetic area here for VESA mountability, something that is not present on the color version, unfortunately. So unfortunately here you do not have that magnetic area, so you can't VESA mount it. But as I discussed in the review of this one, I believe that you are able to find some tablet holders that are kind of, you know, holding on the side kind of things, and you can tilt it and pivot it. So there is a way to go around that. And also, to be quite honest, I mean, that magnetic mountability kind of thing, I never felt that it was a nice way to do it. So either way, if I were to own one of these and mount them on my setup, I would opt for an added kind of holder that's going to hold them, and that holder is then mountable on a tripod or on a VESA or on a wall or something like that. So that's it, right? Then the black and white wins because it's better readability and clarity and stuff. Well, maybe, but it's not that simple, because the front light on the black and white, as we've seen, is not really as good as it is on the color one. And then we get to the color one because it has a much better front light, as we've clearly now seen in 1:1 ratio, especially that warm front light. I think that's the biggest problem of the black and white. But that's a good thing that this one has a good front light, because you will need it in 99.9% of environmental use case scenarios. So that gives the 13K color a really lovely, truly paper-like type of a reading, typing experience, which is something that's very pleasant. No, it's not as sharp, not as contrasty, and not as punchy as the black and white version is, and the readability on the color version is lower. That is indisputable. But just by being lower, does it mean that it's unusable? Not at all. It's actually perfectly usable. On its own, when you're just reading it, it's very crisp, it's very sharp, it's very nice, it's very readable. It's just that it's not as crisp, sharp, and readable as the excellent 13K black and white. However, on this one, you have the addition of colors, and also the calibration of contrast in the different modes, as we've seen in the web and the text and the image mode. Particularly rendering of image content is simply better calibrated on this monitor with this panel, with all of these things. You can get nicer results and fine-tuning results than you can on the 13K black and white. As far as I'm concerned, which one would I choose? I think that I am leaning towards the color version, not because it's color. So despite it being a color version, I think I prefer it mainly because of the front light. For me, that front light makes all of the difference in the quality and just how pleasant it is to interact with the device. It's a very close call because the image quality on the 13K is almost impossible to pass up on, especially when you turn off that front light. Then this one dominates, absolutely dominates, and I would choose it like any day of the year over the color one. But the fact remains that as soon as I turn on that front light, I can't avoid the greenish tintedness and always have a sense of kind of glowing at you in a not so nice way. It's not terrible, but it's not as nice as it is on the color version. So that is point number one. Point number two for me in favor of the color version, again, not the colors, is the touch functionality. For me, the touch functionality is the one that truly transforms the way that you can actually interact with this and how usable it is for the types of scenarios that I would use it in. And what would I use it for? Primarily for reading and typing, and more specifically for coding situations. In a portrait orientation, for coding with the ability to just swipe up and down, type, swipe, type, press and hold, and do all of that kind of stuff without needing to reach for the mouse, looking where the cursor is, and doing all of that kind of stuff. So when you combine your keyboard shortcuts and the ability to just slide around and interact with the screen directly and your program directly, that is a comfort of life thing that I really did appreciate in a day-to-day use case scenario when I was testing this monitor. Color is a nice bonus, don't get me wrong. The color is actually nicely rendered in here, and I think again in the coding type of environment it is a nice benefit because at a glance you can see a class, a function, and blah 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 blah. And that is basically all of that put together. For my personal use case scenarios, the color version would be a better fit, despite I myself not being a fan or a proponent of Kaleido technology. I don't like Kaleido technology. I don't like Kaleido panels. I don't like Kaleido colors. But in this combination, for this type of use case scenario and for my specific use case scenarios, I see myself gravitating towards the color version because of the better front light and touch capabilities. However, if those are not your priorities and you are not incensed by the front light colors, which is really not that bad, it's just when you put them one to one that you actually notice the difference between the two. The image quality and the crispness of the black and white version truly is difficult to ignore because it is very, very impressive. And again, I have to repeat myself, when you turn that front light off on the monochromatic version and you start using it in a normally lit environment, that is a very nice experience indeed. And as I'm telling you this, I'm again flip-flopping between like which one would I actually buy for myself. Yes, the colors are nice, the touch is nice, but that image quality, when you turn off the front light, it's so good. And this one I can't use with the front lights turned off. And for me personally, the ePaper use is to be without colors. So I have the mouse anyway, so the touch is just a nice to have. It's not an essential. Readability is so much better. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe the black and white then is the better one? I don't know. What do you guys think? What would be your pick between these and for your use case scenarios? Either way you choose, I don't think that you can lose. Ha! I did not plan that, but I rhymed. I think that's gonna be a thumbnail text as well. But do let me know in the comments down below which one would be your preference and your pick, having seen all of that you've seen. And if you haven't seen the individual reviews of each of these, I do invite you to watch them because that's a plentiful, source of additional information that you definitely want to have if you are considering purchasing either one of these two ePaper monitors. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, and see you in the next video. Bye.